Hi everyone, this is a new video of chapter 15, the chapter of monopoly. So we're going to work from exercises 7 to 11. Remember, this is the book Principles of Economics, the book of Gregory Mankiw, 7th edition. So the 7th question says, consider the relationship between monopoly pricing and price elasticity of demand. A. Explain why a monopolist will never produce a quantity at which the demand curve is inelastic. Hint: if demand is inelastic and the firm raises its price, what happens to total revenue and total cost? So it reminds us to one previous chapter when we analyzed the idea of how the total revenue change when we move the price. So remember the elasticity of a curve. It measures how for example in the demand part, how the demand will change once we move the price. So it means in an elastic curve that they are more sensitive to those changes than when we move the price. When we increase the price, the impact on quantity should be higher. So definitely it should be worse increase the price in an elastic curve instead of inelastic curve. Since we increase the price, it will make the total revenue higher. Okay, so this is the concept that we need to have as how to set in order to start with this question. So as I said, as mentioned before, so when you charge in elastic part, it means that you can still charge a higher price and you will have higher revenue. And in terms of our total cost, remember the total cost has it has a relationship, a direct relationship with the quantities. So it means that anytime we increase the quantities, the total cost will increase as well. But when remember that when we charge a higher price, definitely by the law of demand, the quantity demanded should be lower. So then the total cost once the price is higher definitely should decrease. Then the other question says, the B1, draw a diagram for a monopolist precisely labeling the portion of demand curve that is inelastic. As a hint, we have the answer is related to the margin revenue curve. So here we have the scheme that we usually set, which we have in the x-axis we have the quantities. Here we have the price that will appear shortly, and here we have the demand as usual, like downward slope shape, and the marginal revenue, which is cheaper than the demand. Okay, here we have the marginal revenue, and then here the other red curve is the marginal cost, which is increasing one, and here we have the average total cost, which is kind of U shape, with minimum exactly in a point when it crosses the marginal cost. If you are not familiar with those concepts, I extremely recommend you go back to a previous chapter when we talk about the cost curves in order to understand how we can shape them. So here, this is the important part and the key part of this point. So when we have the marginal revenue, remember the concept of margin revenue is how our revenue change once we produce or we sell better additional quantity. So here, when this is in the positive part, it means that any time that we produce one additional unit, the total revenue will increase as well. As soon as it crosses the x-axis, so it becomes negative, it immediately informs us that once we produce one additional unit, the total revenue will decrease. So then, when the marginal revenue is equal to 0, it is exactly the point where the total revenue is the maximum. Okay, so then this QMR is the part when the total revenue is the maximum one. Then we need to figure out which is the inelastic. So this one is better price. Sorry, I put here cost as well, but it should be price as well. So here this is the inelastic part. Why? Remember the condition that we established before, that we said that anytime we charge a higher price, the total revenue will increase. So this one, it should be the part. So because remember, once the marginal revenue is negative, it means that anytime we charge or we sell a higher quantity, the total revenue will be lower. Will be lower. So definitely, from this piece of the demand, we have that anytime we charge a higher price, the total revenue will increase. So then this one should be inelastic. So for this reason, we demand the part that is inelastic, and where the monopolists won't charge, because they will charge under this part, which is the elastic one. So then on your diagram, show the quantity of price, maximize total revenue. This should be the price, and this should be the quantity where the total revenue is the maximum one. Then the point says, you live in a town with 300 adults and 200 children, and you are thinking about putting on a play to entertain your neighbors and make some money. A play has a fixed cost of $2,000, but selling an extra ticket has zero margin cost. So it means that it doesn't matter to sell another one. There are no additional costs for printing, for anything associated. So any variable cost attached to this model, to this play. So here are the demand schedules for your two types of customers. So here we have the price from 10 to 0 in decreasing one, and here we have the demand for adults and children. Naturally, by law of demand, when we charge higher price, we have a lower demand. So here something interesting, because even we have lower prices, the quantity it keeps 300. How come? Basically because the quantity of this town is maximum 300. So even I just provide it by free, there are just 300 people that they can just use this play. It's something similar to the children, just with the only difference that here start to consume from price of 5. And this is basically associated, as we assume a lot of times, these two different groups, they have a different willingness to pay, and this is basically associated more to the kind of available income. So for this reason, the adults, they have more available income, and maybe children, they don't want to pay too much for that play. So this is the case, and again, it doesn't go more than 200, because there are no more than 200 children in that town. So here we can build the other part that is not provided by the book, but we can automatically add 3 columns where we have total cost, which is exactly equal to fixed cost because there are no variable costs. And we have total revenue for adults and total revenue for children. I discriminate both because it will be useful in order to analyze the next points. So here we have 2,000, and remember, as fixed cost, it means that it doesn't have it doesn't have like any relationship regarding the production. Then the total revenue should be just price times Q. So this first column times the second one. So it should be 10 times 0, 9 times 10, 100, 8, 1, 200, so on and so forth. And here is the total revenue associated for adults. And here it should be for children. And here we are. Then the first question says, to maximize profit, what price would you charge for an adult ticket? So definitely the idea, remember that the total cost is exactly the same, it's constant, so we're going just to have a look to the total revenue. So total revenue, higher one, should be this one, which is associated for a price of 7, and at that price the adults will consume 300, so everyone will pay. So then the total revenue would be 2,100 associated with the children should be 800 total revenue, which is associated with price of 4, and 200 children consume that play. So then we have the total revenue or the profits are equal to total revenue 2, which is the should be the children, and total revenue 1 should be the total revenue 2 should be associated to adults revenue, and the other one should be associated to children's revenue, and then the minus the total cost for that. So we have 2,100, 800 on 2,000. So we have the profits for that company, $900. Then idea. The second question says, okay, the city council passes a law prohibiting you from charging different prices to different customers. What price do you set for a ticket now? How much profit do you make? So that in that case, we are going to just take advantage for adults, and children they won't consume anymore. So we have the total revenue for children and adults should be 2,100, sorry, minus 2,000, which is the fixed cost. Then it should be a change of the profits, definitely, because it's associated with the no consumption of the children. Then the next question says that who is worse off because of the law prohibiting price discrimination? Who is better off if you can quantify the changes in welfare? So here definitely the worse off are children, because they before they can't, or they could take advantage for the play they paid for, but due to the change to the price of 7, they won't play anymore. They won't consume. No children will go there. So then, if I can draw kind of a diagram to understand better in order to quantify the loss of consumer surplus for children's side, we can draw something like that. Here we can suppose that this red curve is the demand curve associated with the children, which is we can assume kind of that this is low, it is like downward shape, because once the price is higher, the quantities consumed are less. And here we have the price, which was 4 the first time with discrimination, and the quantity consumed for that value was 200. Definitely what we have here is like with a price of 6, the children they don't consume anymore. So when they don't consume anymore, it should be that this is kind of the maximum quantity of this curve. So this one should be kind of the consumer surplus before. It was the base, kind of a triangle with 200, and then we have 6 as a height minus 4. They should be the height. So remember, the area of a triangle is base times height over 2, and then the consumer surplus was 200, and then due to the change they don't consume anymore, then there should be 0, so it should be a loss of 200. Then the situation of adults is exactly the same, because they will pay again the same value. Then the next part says the deep point says, if the fixed cost of the play were 2,500 rather than 2,000, how would your answers to parts A, B, and C change? So here the only change that we have here is associated with this fourth column, because now the total cost should be 2,500. And then what we have here, the A part, it was when we discriminate. So then the total revenue will be exactly the same, 2,100 from the adult side and 800 from the children's side, minus the total cost new, which is the 2,500. Then the profits will be 400, definitely will decrease associated with a higher fixed cost. Then the B part, there will be a loss when we can just charge a unique price, which should be 7. Then it should be 2,100 minus 2,500, which is the new total fixed cost, or the total cost which is associated with the fixed cost. And then it should be a loss of minus $400. And then the situation again, children will be worse off, because first they were charged for and then the price should be 7, so no children will pay for that play. 9 point says only one firm produces and sells soccer balls in the country of Vietnam. And as the story begins, international trade in soccer balls is prohibited. The following equations describe the monopolist's demand: marginal revenue, total cost, margin cost. So here we have the demand, which is negative as usual, P equal 10 minus Q. Then we have marginal revenue. This one, 10 minus 2Q, as usual, is steeper than the demand, so it lies down the demand. Then we have the total cost. Here we automatically understand that there is a fixed cost of 3. How come? Because it doesn't, I mean, it's not accompanied by the variable, so it doesn't matter which is going to be quantity produced. Anytime we'll need to pay 3, and the other two values, they are the kind of the variable cost, and all with plus, because anytime you increase your quantity produced, your total cost naturally will increase as well. Here we have the marginal cost, which is 1 plus Q, which is the derivative of total cost, but we don't need that concept so far because it's already provided by the book. And here they explain the label. So Q is the quantity and P is the price measured in Vietnamese dollars. And here is the first question: how many soccer balls does the monopolist produce? At what price are they sold? What is the monopolist's profit? So first, we need to be aware of the monopolist condition, which is actually associated to all companies. So we have here that the marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost is the condition that we need to achieve. Basically, if we want to say that, like, to be short, it should be like any quantity addition that you produce, it has to return you any profit. Once we achieve that condition, that the last unit that we produce is exactly that it cost, then it should be the final condition where we should stop our production. Then we replace the marginal revenue, which is 10 minus 2Q, and then we replace the marginal cost, which is 1 plus Q, and then we just collect terms. Just collect this one goes to the left part as negative, and this one it goes to the right part as positive. So we have 9 is equal to 3Q, and then I just make over 3, Q is equal to 9/3, and then we have Q is equal to 3. This is the monopolist quantity that it maximizes the profits. Then we should change, oh sorry, we should replace that 3 in the demand, which is to be P equal 10 minus Q. Then it should be P equal to 10 minus 3, and then the price of monopoly should be equal to 7. Then the other question says how many soccer balls does the monopolist produce and what the price are sold and what is the monopolist profit. The first is the previous slide, just I didn't find the profits. So then the profits should be equal to total revenue minus total cost. So remember, total revenue is equal to P, price, times Q minus total cost. So here we have the price should be 7 and the Q should be 3. So I'm sorry, maybe this is in the opposite, but it should be 10 times 3, and the total cost should be taken this one, just convert Q by 3, should be 3 plus 3 plus 0.5 times 3 squared. Then we have here 21 minus this one should be 6 plus this 3 squared should be 9. 9 times 0.5 should be 4.5, and then we have this one, and then should be the profits are 10.5 in Vietnamian whatever dollars. Okay, then have this one, the other one. The other question says, one day the king of Vietnam decrees that henceforth there will be free trade, either imports or exports, of soccer balls and the world price of $6 Vietnamian dollars. The firm is now a price taker in a competitive market, what happens to domestic production of soccer balls, to domestic consumption, thus weakening export or import soccer balls. So here first we need to start with a competitive market. Remember, the condition of a competitive market mainly is that they are price takers, so they cannot fix any price. So basically the price should be set by the world price at this time 6. So then if they are competitive, they should be the condition that price is equal to marginal cost. Then the price is 10 minus q equal to 1 plus q. Remember, it's different to the previous one because the previous one we have marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. We just collect terms. One goes to the left part, q goes to the right part, adding. So we have here 9 equal to 2q, and then q is equal to 9 over 2. Then the quantity is 4.5. So automatically we figure out that the quantity should be higher. Remember, anytime we have the competitive market, it has the feature that the quantity should be larger and the price should be lower, because this is kind of the desirable for a society where the consumer surplus is maximized and the social welfare as understood as consumer plus producer surplus is the maximum one. Then the price should be replacing that value on the demand. So we have 10 minus 4.5, and then we have price is equal to 5.5. Then due to the world price higher, because it's 6, they should be an exporter because they are more competitive than the outside world. So then what we have here is like the domestic production should be q equal to 10 minus p, which p is the world price because now the price everywhere should be the same. Then should be 10 minus 6, and the quantity consumed is 4. Definitely is better than the monopolist, because remember, the monopolist, the quantity demanded was 3. And then the domestic production should be, you just go to the marginal cost, which is at the end of the day, this is the supply curve, and then you know that the price, the world price should be 6, and then should be q equal to 5. So it means that if you make the difference between the consumption, the domestic production against the domestic production, the difference, this gap, should be the exportation, which should be 1. Okay, then the other part of the exercise C1, it says, in our analysis of international trade in chapter 9, a country becomes an exporter when the price without trade is below the world price, and an importer when the price without trade is above the world price. Does that conclusion hold in your answers to parts A and B? Explain. So remember, the idea is like in part A, it was a monopolist, so then the quantity was 3 and the price was 7. In the part B, it was competitive and the quantity was 4.5 and the price was 5.5. So the idea is like the world price should be higher than in that case, sorry, in that particular case, the world price, which is 6, is higher than domestic price. So then, if we think about the second part, part B, that we analyzed, definitely it makes sense that this country should be an exporter. But when we are talking as a first exercise, then the price is 7, then should be an importer. But because they become competitive, so for this reason, this is an exporter. Then D, suppose that the world price was not 6, but instead happened to be exactly the same as the domestic price without trade as determined in part A, which should be 7. Would allowing trade have changed anything in the dynamic? Explains how the result here compare analysis of in chapter 9. So here we analyze that in that way. So we have the demand, okay, the old curves that we already have. In part A, it was a monopolist, right? So then this one, it should be like kind of two cases. I analyzed from one side because I assumed that they will produce a price of 7. Okay, so let me see. Let me show you how I interpreted that. So here we have the Q equal to 3 and the P equal to 7. So here we have, this is kind of the supply, which remember is the marginal cost, and here we have the demand. So here we have the competitive price and the competitive quantity. Here we have the marginal cost, which is 1 plus Q. So when the Q is 0, the marginal cost should be 1, and then it will increase with a slope of 1. And then here we have 10 10. So when the quantity is 0, the price is 10. When the price is 0, the quantity should be 10 as well. So here we have the demand curve, and here we have the price and competitive one. Here we have the monopolist, which is exactly the same as the world price, which is 7. So here automatically this is the demand of the country to this price of 7. But then to this price the supply should be higher, should be at this value. So then, because it should be at this value, so this should be kind of a gap, kind of a difference. So then this should be the total production of the economy. So then should be that this difference that is not consumed like inside a country should be outside. So then this difference should be the exports. So in order to measure them, should be the total production minus the consumed the consumption inside a country. Then we have the marginal cost, which should be 7, which is this 7 is equal to 1 plus 5. So then the quantity produced should be 6, the total one. But at this price, remember that they just consumed 3 inside a country. So this difference, 6 minus 3, should be 3, should be the export. So this is the analysis of the chapter before that we have, where the difference, where there is a gap between the price produced, the quantity produced, and the quantity consumed. This difference should be exported at this time, where the price this time is higher than this competitive one. Okay, then we have the next point. It says, based on market research, a film production company in Ectenia obtains the following information about the demand and production cost of its new DVD. So here is the demand, here is the total revenue, here is the marginal revenue, and here is the marginal cost, where Q indicates the number of copies sold and P is the price in Ectenian dollars. Find the price and quantity that maximize the company's profit. So here, remember, we start with the condition of marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. We just replace the equations marginal revenue and marginal cost, and then we start to collect terms. 1000 minus 100, then we have 10Q plus 20Q. So we have here, we make that 30, which is multiplying, we make it to divide, and then we have that the quantity of this monopolist is 30. Then remember, anytime we need to replace this one in the demand, not in marginal revenue, should be in the demand. So then we have the price equal to this, we replace just 30, and we have here the price monopolist is 700. The second point says find the price and quantity that would maximize social welfare. So remember, anytime that we talk about social welfare is because we are assuming the competitive market. So we have price equal to marginal cost, then we have 1000 minus 10Q, which is the demand, and the marginal cost, which is this one. We just collect terms, and here we make the quantity 45, which is higher than 30. Anytime we find the the quantity in competitive market, it should be higher than monopolist, and the price should be lower. And here we have the price, so then the price should be 550. Then the calculate the deadweight loss from monopoly. So I built the graph. So here we have the supply, kind of the margin cost, and here we have the demand, and here we have the okay, this one is 100 because remember marginal cost when Q is 0, the cost should be the margin cost should be 100, and this is the kind of the slope approximately. And here we have the demand price, which would be 1000 because when Q is 0 it is 1000 and the price is 0, the other one should be 100. Okay, here we have the price, the competitive price. Here we have the monopolist one. Okay, and then this is the marginal revenue. Okay, which it lies here in 15. This is the marginal revenue. And then the idea is like, remember, monopolies, you need to locate every time marginal revenue against marginal cost. These will define the quantities of the monopoly, and when you replace that on the demand, should be the demand of that. Okay, so then the deadweight loss should be this triangle. Okay, this one. This is the triangle that represents the deadweight loss, which kind of all the transactions that they are not going to occur anymore due to the higher price. So this is kind of similar to the deadweight loss of the tax, just like the taxes should be taken by the monopolist. So here we have the equation. So here we have, it should be triangle, which the area is equal to base times height over 2. So we have here price monopolist minus marginal revenue times the height, which should be competitive quantities minus competitive monopolist quantity over 2. So we just replace them. So here we continue. So remember, here we have the price monopoly was 700. The marginal revenue we'll need to figure out which is, so it should be just replacing. So here just to remember the scheme that we are trying to find. And here we have 30, the quantity, so then we replace here the marginal revenue. So we have that the marginal revenue here, this is 400. Then the competitive one, it should be 45. Then we just replace all values, and here we find this one, which is measured in the Ectenian or dollars of that country, which represents all the transactions that they are not going to occur anymore due to a higher price. Then the G point says, suppose in addition to the cost above, the director of the film has to be paid. The company is considering 4 options. First, a flat fee of 2,000 Ectenian dollars. Second, 50% of profits. Third, 150 Ectenian dollars per unit sold. Or fourth, 50% of the revenue. For each option, calculate the profit maximizing price and quantity. Which, if any, of these compensation schemes would alter the deadweight loss from monopoly? Explain. So here is the first one, the flat fee. So here we have the monopoly's quantity, and here the price. Here we have the marginal cost, and here we assume that the fixed cost is equal to 0. Why? Because when we convert this one, we can say that this one is 100 q plus 10 q squared, and when we derive this part, we should lie in this one. But if we have here a fixed cost, we cannot understand we should be the marginal cost. I mean, when we have this one and we know that there are fixed costs and we derive something, the point is that when we derive the same, we need to lie to this one. But if this is just a number, the problem is like when we derive, it will be 0. So we don't know which should be the value, because it should be exactly the same 5, 10, 100, and when we derive exactly equal to 0. So for this reason we assume that the fixed cost should be 0, and then the average cost is dividing this one. I'm going to explain why I'm doing that. So this one should be this one over Q. We can split this Q when we have something adding. So we have 100Q over Q and this one over Q, and then we have that the average cost is this one, exactly equal to the marginal cost. So you automatically can infer that average cost is exactly the same to marginal cost every time the fixed costs are equal to 0. So then the profits are equal to pi. We symbolize pi with the Greek letter, and we have TR, which is total revenue minus total cost. So remember, total revenue is equal to P times Q, and we can kind of model or interpret this total cost exactly equal to over Q times Q, because we can cancel out and we can return to this value. So we have total cost over Q, so this one should be average cost. So then we collect this Q, so we have Q equal to this one. I just make all that stuff in order to write in another way these benefits, and the Q times P minus average cost. Then we have here that the average cost is 100 plus 10Q. Then we just replace Q, and the average cost is 400. Then we have Q is equal to 30, which was this one, times P, which is equal to 700, minus 400, which is the average cost. So it means immediately that this is the profits minus the director's fee, which it is 2,000, then should be $7,000 Ectenian dollars. This should be the profits. The second situation is you provide 50% of the profits. We automatically already understand this one. So they should be that this is again the profits that we need to provide to the director 50% of the profits. Then should be 50% of 9,000. So I make 9,000 times 0.5, 4,500. This is the fee that I need to pay for the director. So then the net profit should be 4,500. So it should be better the first idea. The third idea is to provide 150 Ectenian dollars per unit sold. So then it should be like the director's wage should be 30, which is produced, times 150, and then should be 4,500. So then the net profit should be exactly the second one, and the third one is the 50% of the revenue. So revenue should be this one. We just replace 30, so then should be 3,000 minus 9,000. Then should be 21,000 total revenue. Then the 50% of this one is 10,500, and the profits, remember, they are 9,000. Minus this one should be loss. Okay, so then the first idea, which I just provide a flat, like kind of a flat fee of 2,000, it should be the best one in terms of benefits. Then regarding the case of debt with loss, the first three, they don't change any production at all, because the production still remains the same. So it means immediately that the debt with loss cannot be altered. But the fourth one, it changes, because due to there is a loss, the production is not going to be the same. Even is better close the firm and don't produce, because if they provide a 50% of the revenue, definitely should be a loss for that company. Then there is not going to be more debt with loss, but they are not going to be more transaction. The 11th and last point says many schemes for price discriminator involve some cost. For example, discount coupons take up the time and resources of both the buyer and the seller. This question considers the implication of costly price discrimination. To keep things simple, let's assume that our monopolist's production costs are simply proportional to output, so that average total cost and marginal costs are constant and equal to each other. So then the question is, draw the cost, demand, margin, revenue curves for the monopolies. Show the price the monopolies would charge without price discrimination. So here is the idea. Here we have the price and quantities. Here we have, as usual, the demand, downward shaped. Here we have the margin revenue, and here we have the margin cost, which is actually equal to average cost, which is constant. Okay. Uh, then the idea of here that we have is the next. Remember, anytime we need to locate average marginal cost equal to marginal revenue, this will define the quantities that they will be produced, and then this should be the price, and then what we have here. Okay, this is the first question, right? We already have the price and the quantities of that monopolist. The second question says, in your diagram, mark the area equal to the monopolist's profits and call it X. Mark the area equal to consumer surplus and call it Y. And mark the area equal to the deadwood loss and call it Z. So here we have price and quantity. Here we have again the demand, the margin revenue, where we have P and Q. So remember that the benefits of monopolist should be revenue, which is going to be P times Q, which is going to be all this rectangle, but this one should be the cost. Okay, this rectangle of here, because it should be the average cost times Q, which is going to be exactly the same as total cost. Let me show you something here. So here we have the average cost and times Q. This should be average cost is exactly equal to total cost over Q times Q. It cancel out, so I finish in total cost. So this is kind of the total cost, this part. Okay, all this part is the total cost, and this one, it should be the total revenue. So this difference makes X automatically the total the profits. Then this is the monopoly's profits. The Y, this should be the consumer surplus, and then Z should be the deadweight lost. Next question says, now suppose that the monopolist can perfectly price discriminate. What is the monopolist's profit? So then, if they can perfectly discriminate, remember the principle that when you discriminate, the idea is like you are going to take all the willingness to pay for each consumer. So it traduces immediately that you will take all that, so you will take all consumer surplus and plus you will take out the deadweight loss. So here you will have this idea. Then X should be the monopolist's profit, and at that time we have that the consumer surplus should be 0 and the loss should be 0. D point, what is the change in the monopolist's profit from price discrimination? What is the change in total surplus from price discrimination? Which change is larger? Explain. So here we have again the part. Okay, this should be X plus Y plus Z. Okay, should be the total monopolist profit. So it's not going to be just X, is going to be X plus Y plus Z. And basically before discriminate, we have the X was the monopolist's profit, Y was the consumer surplus, and Z deadweight loss. After discriminate, the monopolist should be X plus Y plus Z. Okay? And the E part says, now suppose that there is some cost of price discrimination. To model this cost, let's assume that the monopolist has to pay a fixed cost, C, to price discriminate. How would a monopolist make the decision whether to pay this fixed cost? Give your answer in terms of X, Y, Z, and Z. So here we have the monopolist should discriminate just or when C, this cost is lower than Z plus Y. It means lower than the consumer surplus plus the deadweight loss, because otherwise if this cost is higher, it's better to keep the condition where they didn't, or the monopoly didn't discriminate. And the F part says, how would a benevolent social planner who cares about total surplus decide whether the monopoly should price discriminate? Give you answer in terms of X, Y, Z, and C. So the idea is like the social planner should focus on consumer surplus. That's the basic idea. They want to maximize the welfare of consumers, but the price discrimination took from the initial part this Y, which was the consumer surplus, and they want and they want to maximize the benefits. So the idea is like basically um, the idea is like decide whether the monopolist should price discriminate. It should be the case where when they discriminate, they don't affect the consumer surplus. And the last question says, compare your answers to parts E and F. How does the monopolist's incentive to price discriminate differ from social planners? It is possible that the monopolist will price discriminate even though doing so in a social desirable. Monopolist likes to increase benefits, and social planner likes to provide more consumer surplus. Yes, the idea is like even it's not social desirable, it should be okay sometimes, because when you discriminate and you charge another price to the other people, what are you trying to make? In some way, try to incorporate those consumers that they were out of the market, because you provide a lower price that they can go to market. Obviously, it's not kind of social desirable compared with the case, compare basically with the case of the competitive market, but sometimes it can allow provide some people to go to the market. But obviously, this capture of all of the consumer shop on deadweight loss make to think that it should be something else beyond in order to provide these kind of extreme profits to the society again. So I hope it has worth for you. This is again kind of subtle. This is my position, my point of view. As other videos, you can comment, you can see maybe this is not okay, this is wrong, we can build better answer. I'm really open to all that. So please continue, go ahead, keep it up, and enjoy economics. Bye bye.